Hi Dimitrii, this is Mike from Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, and this beautiful machine is your Pfaff 130, made in Germany back in the 1950s. It's a strong precision sewing machine. It's one of the very best sewing machines in existence. Most sewing machines of this type don't come with this special stitch pattern adapter on the back. You may or may not use it, but anyway, it adds quite a bit of value to the machine. And it also has this gooseneck light on the front that you can aim however suits you best. To turn the light on, you turn this little collar here at the top. To turn it off, you just turn that collar back the other way. Voila. I'm going to take this loose and pack it and store it inside the harp of the machine here for shipping because it's a little bit fragile. So when you get it, you'll have to slip it back on. This little bracket just goes right on this screw at the top of your faceplate. I'm going to loosen it up and wrap it real well and then pack it in like that. So when you get it, you just loosen this screw up enough that you can slip this bracket between the screw and the faceplate here, and then tighten the screw down. This is the final test before we pack her up to ship her out to you. And in this test, we're going to go over the operation of the machine just so you can get right to sewing with it. So let's start by winding a bobbin. Your bobbin is in this bobbin case underneath here. And to take it out, you lift up this little latch and just slide it out. You have to make sure that the needle is up in the up position. Otherwise, if it's stuck down inside the bobbin, you're going to have a hard time getting the bobbin out. Then you just, I'm going to take off that little bit of thread because winding over the top of old thread is never a good idea. And I get lots and lots of spare thread that comes in these old machines. So let's put a spool of thread on the spool pin here at the top. Go from here around this little tensioner right here and down into this tensioner down here. Just go between the two discs. Then they'll come up to the bobbin winder. And before we put the bobbin on the bobbin winder, we're going to poke the thread through the little slot in the side. Put a finger on it to hold it in place. Alrighty. So poke the thread through the little hole in the side from the inside towards the outside. Oh, crikey. It's always easier if you cut a fresh end on it because the frayed end there makes it divert away from whatever you're trying to poke through. All those little fingers of thread sticking out. So, from the inside of the bobbin towards the outside, put your finger on it, on the thread, and then put several wraps on the bobbin to hold the thread in place while the bobbin winds. Then with the thread going on this way over the top, slide it onto the bobbin winder. thread will be going over the top this way from the front to the back. Press this little lever to put the rubber tire in contact with the hand wheel. And this little finger here will drop down into the bobbin, and as the bobbin fills, it'll lift this finger up. It'll push it up until when it's full, it'll just pop open and stop winding. So push this down so the rubber tire is in contact with the hand wheel, and then loosen the chrome knob here in the center of the hand wheel, 1/8 of a turn or so, until it you'll feel it hit its stop. And then the hand wheel is disengaged from the rest of the machine, so it can wind the bobbin without making the machine cycle. So give it a little gas here, and you don't need to go fast. More chance of tangling things up if you go fast. And that'll be plenty for our test. Push this little finger that's inside the bobbin up, and that disconnects the whole thing. Take the bobbin off and reclutch your machine by retightening the chrome knob in the center of the hand wheel. Now, with the thread coming off the top of the bobbin in this direction, you're going to drop it into the bobbin case and guide the thread up into this little slanted slot, and then on up under that leaf spring, which is your lower tension. Then when you pull on the thread, you'll feel just a little bit of drag on the thread. Pull that little latch out again to give you something to hold on to, and you'll see that there's an opening in the top of the bobbin. So when you put it in, that opening is going to face up. So tip it back, and again with the needle up out of the needle plate there, slide it onto the post down in the hook area. Make sure it goes all the way in good and snug. And then we're going to thread the machine. And we'll use the red thread just because it looks so nice against the black background. Put your thread on the spool pin, or you can use this spool pin back here if you choose. This should be tight. Actually, I'm not going to tighten it yet because I'm going to turn it sideways while it ships. Maybe I'll even take it off all the way. If it comes with this piece here disattached, which probably would be a good idea, this screw here is what tightens it to the spool pin. So when you get it, just push it down onto the spool pin and tighten the screw. Again, it's not going to go anywhere. So to use it, you put your spool of thread on this long transverse pin, slide it into that holder, and tighten the thumb screw at the top so it can't slip back out. Well, hello, Scrappy. Our little dog just came in. Hello. Yes, it's nice to see you too. Yeah, you're a good boy. Okay, from the spool, you go under this thread guide here and then over this tension device, between the discs of that little tension device, and then down between the two discs of this, which is your upper tension. So between the discs all the way around to the top again, and there's a little thin spring here. It's called a check spring right here. You want to go up far enough that you can catch that check spring. So when you pull down on the thread, you'll see it move the check spring. You know you got it. From there, you go under this big thread guide, up into the thread guide above it by going behind it. We'll just slip in And then you're going to go through the take-up lever, which is the thing that goes up and down while you're sewing. Go through the take-up lever from the right to the left. Then you're going to go down into this thread guide, and you just push it in from the side, like that. Under this thread guide down here on the needle clamp, and then we're going to go through the eye of the needle from the front towards the back. And again, I'm going to cut a nice clean end on here so it slips through that hole easily without being diverted by the little fibers of the frayed end. Hold your needle thread loosely, and you're going to turn the hand wheel towards you one full revolution. The needle is going to take the thread down where the hook below there is going to pick up the loop of thread, wrap it around the bobbin, and bring up your lower thread, the bobbin thread that we just made. So all the way down, all the way up again, and when it gets to the top, you'll be able to pull that lower thread up. And there it is. Go between the toes of the presser foot and towards the back of the machine, and you are threaded up and ready to sew. Put a piece of fabric under the presser foot, and off we go. By the way, we're up in the woods in Oregon, up between Eugene, Oregon, and the coast. Our shop is in a little intentional community called Leisureland, and it's kind of an artist, creative people kind of place. But you know, that's beside the point. That's just where we are here. Why did I go there? Must have had something in mind. Lower your presser foot onto the fabric using the lever on the back here, and we'll set the length of the stitch to about 2. 2 is a pretty average stitch length for regular thread, regular fabric. Give it a little bit of gas and just guide your fabric. Don't try to move the fabric. Let the machine move the fabric, because if you happen to push the fabric and flex the needle a little bit, it'll miss that small needle hole and hit the needle plate, and the needle will break, and yeah, you just don't want that. So letting the machine do the work, you just guide it. Give it a little gas and off we go. Okay, I'm going to go to, okay. Right now, the stitch pattern selector is engaged. So I'm going to deselect that by pulling out this chrome knob down here and turning it until the little finger pin here goes into the indent above it. See now how it's no longer being, it's no longer connected to the adapter. Loosen this little thumb screw here a little bit. When you loosen it, it allows the pointer to lay against the backing, and it makes the stitch width adapter stay where you put it. When it's screwed in, you'll see it's real loose and floppy, and it's not going to stay where you set it. So loosen that, and it allows the spring steel pointer there to allows the friction to hold the stitch width that you selected. This is what makes the zigzag. When you make a zigzag, 0 on this dial here is straight stitch, no zigzag. And as you turn towards the left, your stitches get wider and wider and wider zigzag as you go. So I'm going to put it on 0. We're going to do a straight stitch. The stitch length is at 2. This is your upper tension assembly, and I usually set it to 3. I don't know why it was on 6 there when I started out. Maybe too loose. I may need to adjust that, but for now, I pull my thread out of the needle. So I'm going to go from the take-up lever back into that thread guide on the faceplate, into the thread guide down on the needle clamp, and through the eye of the needle from the front to the back again. Okay, back between the toes of the presser foot. And put the fabric under the presser foot, lower the presser foot using the lever on the back here, and we're ready to sew. Straight stitch. Just need to guide it. You can guide it any way you want. You can go in circles if you want. But go back to that. So we can add a little more stitch length. Make the stitches longer. We can shorten them a little bit. Make tiny little stitches. I'm going to go back to 2 on the stitch length schedule and show you a reverse, because below the 0 mark here, the stitches get longer and longer and longer, but in reverse. So as you go down, the further down you go, the longer your stitches are in reverse. So 2 and forward, then you go down to reverse, forward, reverse, forward. And then we're going to add some stitch width and do a zigzag. So this again is your stitch width. I'm going to go all the way up to 4, and I didn't do what you're supposed to do and take the needle up out of the fabric before you change your stitch width or your stitch pattern, just so you don't inadvertently bend a needle. But we're on the widest zigzag now. You can go fast or you can go slow. You have control. And now, let's see. Let's use the stitch pattern adapter. For that, I'm going to screw this screw back in. So this is free to move as it moves the stitch pattern selector. Then this knob down here, I'm just going to take that little finger out of the indent, and then it seats itself into the swing arm in the back there that guides the stitch pattern. So I'm going to turn that around a little bit. That's set. Now we're going to do a really close stitch pattern. So I'm going really close to 0, and there's a chance that the thread might, it kind of humps up as you make it closer and closer zigzag. If it gets too close and you don't have the right foot on there, the fabric kind of gets stuck in place and doesn't move. So you may need to back off a little bit and go a little bit further up into the one area, or get a what's called a satin stitch foot that has a little channel on the bottom for that raised thread to go under. So here we are. Lever A is set on 6. You can see it through the little window there. And lever B is set on 1. And see what kind of stitch it makes. You can see the stitch pattern selector moving the stitch width back and forth as it makes this pattern. This is kind of a ball pattern, a series of balls shapes. Pretty cool. Take the needle up out of the fabric. Just push the lever to the left. Change the A lever to the next stitch pattern. But this one is more like arrows or diamonds. And then you can adjust that stitch pattern with your B selector over here. So I'm going to go up to 2. That just kind of squeezed it up a little bit and made the pattern shorter. Go to 3 now. And it's the same basic pattern, just kind of less elongated. Let's choose one more stitch pattern just for fun. So now we are on 2. We went from 6 to 2, or to 1. I guess it's 1 through 6. There we go. Yeah, this one makes more like arrowheads. I'll move the gap up a little bit, see what it does. Yeah. The B lever just lengthens the same pattern. Doesn't change the pattern, it just lengthens it. So A selects the pattern, B gives you a little bit of leeway about how that pattern's going to look. So, the simplest thing though, unless you want to make fancy stitch patterns, is turn this lower knob here, pull it out towards you and turn it until you can set it into the little indent that's in the bottom of this pointer. Then screw this upper thumb screw out. Don't screw it off, just screw it out until it feels fairly loose. and then your stitch selector will stay, your zigzag width selector will stay wherever you set it. Right now it's on 0 for straight stitch. This screw up here is your how much pressure is on your sewing foot. You want just enough pressure to move your fabric along with authority. And if you're sewing a different kind of material that's thicker or slicker, you may need to screw it down just a little bit, just small increments, until it moves along, like I said, with authority. If you want to do free motion sewing, where you're moving the fabric around yourself, like if you're drawing art with this, you would want to let off most of the pressure on your foot so you can move the fabric around by hand. And also at the same time, you'll want to drop the feed by turning this little knob on the bed. Okay. All right, well, I'll oil that. There, turns. You turn it in a clockwise direction, and that drops the feed so that the teeth of the feed dog don't come up above the plate here, so they don't contact the fabric and move it. Then once you take the pressure off your sewing foot, then you're able to move the fabric around. But when you get it, it's going to be in the regular machine mode where the machine moves the fabric. And of course, all of this that I'm telling you, you'll be able to read in your user manual. And I believe that I have a PDF user manual that I can send you. You're going to want to oil your machine after about every 8 hours of operation. And there are oil holes along the top. There are oil holes in a couple of places on the bed. But you're going to want to look in your user manual for oiling instructions. You'll want to take off the faceplate here. There are 2 screws. You just loosen them both a little bit. Move your light out of the way, and be careful with it because this is fragile. Don't drop something on it or turn your machine on it, or this will crack like an eggshell. But once you loosen these 2 screws, you lift your light out of the way, and then you lift the plate up a little bit, and it pulls off, and you'll be able to see all the movement inside there. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to oil every movement point where 2 things ride on each other. So they're riding on a thin bed of oil instead of grinding on each other. You'll want to look underneath here because there are oiling points below as well. But again, your user manual will tell you where those points are. This is your upper tension assembly, and when you're sewing, if it looks like your fabric is, your stitch is loose and loopy on the bottom, you'll want a little bit more pressure, more tension on the upper tension, because it's the tension of the upper thread that pulls the lower thread up snug into the fabric. If it's too tight and puckery, maybe you have too much. But basically set it on around 3 for regular thread and regular fabric. Again, if you're going to sew heavy stuff, you know, garment leather and canvas, that sort of thing, you're just going to have to play around with it until you get a nice even pattern that's the same on the top and the bottom. You want your bottom thread to be pulled up into the fabric, and you want your top thread to be pulled down into the fabric. That's what your lower tension on the bobbin case does. Yeah, and again, you know, with different material, you may need more or less pressure on the sewing foot. Again, you loosen this knob here to have a little bit of friction there, so your stitch width selector doesn't flop around on you. When you want to go to the stitch pattern adapter on the back, you just take that little pin out of its indent, tighten the upper comb knob down so it can move freely, and as you move it back and forth, it'll seat itself into the lever on the back there, and your stitch pattern adjuster will be able to move it. So again, setting that little nub back into the pointer and loosening this knob so we're not using the it won't be connected to the adapter when you receive it. You'll be in control of everything yourself. And when you're ready to use the adapter, then just convert it back. That's it. I can't think of anything else to tell you. When you you should dust and vacuum out below the needle plate every once in a while. Maybe every time you oil the machine, just loosen these two screws and you'll be able to lift off this plate here and just brush it out with like a paintbrush or a stiff little brush. If you don't have a vacuum on hand, just blow the dust out. Vacuuming is better, but basically get the dust out of there, because this polyester thread dust is a little bit abrasive, and the less of that you have in there, the longer your machine will last. It's going to last you 100 years anyway, but yeah, might as well preserve it as long as you can. And your grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be able to use it when you're dead. Okay, I can't think of anything else to tell you. I'll get her packed up and we'll get her shipped out to you. And enjoy. This is a really fine machine.